Let's build this simple 10-gallon frag tank with no sump on this episode of A Real Reef Hobbyist. For this project, we're going to be using a 10-gallon all-glass aquarium. Nothing special, something I had around from a previous project. You can get these anywhere. They're really inexpensive if you don't have one. But I had one. It was a holding tank for something I'd used before I set up my display tank. Some of the materials we're going to need here these are a couple pieces of Marco rock, brand new rock that I had, some cable ties, some wire cutters, and of course the 10-gallon aquarium, and some egg crate, which you can get these at Home Depot or Lowe's. Okay, so next I'm just going to grab a cloth here and throw it on the bottom glass. This is just so I don't scratch the bottom of the aquarium while I lay my pieces of rock in here to see how high I'm going to need to build this first structure. I'm going to be using some Marco rock. This is from BRS. Leftover pieces I had from another project. This is totally dry rock. It's never been wet. And I'm just going to stack this up, find a way that's pretty stable, and that will be our biological filtration for our project. Okay, so the glass is in the aquarium. It's on our rack. It goes about halfway up, I would say. So that'll give us still plenty of height once we add our structure for some higher light corals to be a little bit closer to the light. And the lower light corals can be on the open section on the side. To build the structure, we're going to be using a product called Egg Crate. This is a 4-foot by 2-foot sheet. You can get these again at Lowe's or Home Depot. And to cut it, I'm going to use these wire cutters. You can also use bone cutters if you have those. Very easy to cut. Let me just get this lined up here. And you're going to want to use the flat side of the cutter and not the curved side. So you want that flat side to go against the piece that you're cutting. And just line it up and give it a quick snip. That's really all there is to it. It's very easy to cut, very easy to work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just come up with the pattern for the size of the next cut I need. I'm going to make that cut and I'll show you what it looks like. So the first piece is cut. It's the width of the aquarium from front to back and a little bit wider than where the rock sits. This is going to give me enough room to build a little box around that. It'll give us some a place to keep the rock, but also give us a place to put our frags. I'm going to raise it up a little bit so the frag can sit up there comfortably, and then we'll build those supports that wide right there. So now we have our 3 pieces cut, our front piece, our back piece, and our top piece, which we had cut previously. We're going to take these 3 pieces and zip tie them together, probably use 3 zip ties, to build a box-like structure that will cover the top of the rock. So I just wanted to show you how to do this if you've never done it before, but basically I'm going to take the zip tie. I have one on here loose just so you can see how it fits together. And I'm going to stand that piece on top of the other piece. So that this is my side piece you're looking at. It's actually turned upside down. And I'm going to use the little wings of the cut off snippets of the other piece, stand it up on the edge, and pull that zip tie tight. So I have the 3 zip ties on here. Got to cut off the excess. But I wanted to show you what I meant. So when you cut the egg crate, it leaves little pieces, maybe 1/4 of an inch, if that even. They don't cut tight. And what I do is I put those right along the edge of the big piece. And then that just kind of holds everything in line. And I pull those zip ties tight and you have a really nice tight corner. I wanted to show you the size of the zip ties I'm using. You can see they're really small. You don't need anything huge to do this. Their zip ties are pretty strong and they'll have plenty of support. 3 across a structure like this is more than enough. So you can see that I have both sides on now. And I have the box form that's going to go over the top of that rock. Should give us plenty of height. These are strong. Should hold the frags without any problem. Plenty of frags. Again, the frags aren't very heavy and these things can support a lot of weight. So let's just set this in the aquarium here. I did cut it front to back, so tight. So just to get over this little lip of the plastic is just going to take a second. Just got to get this pushed down. There we go. And there it is. So that's the stand in the aquarium. Let's get it moved over where the rock is. Okay, so I removed the rag and I've stuck our egg crate structure over the rock. This gives us a good place to put some higher light frags, but also gives us a place for like that nice sized piece of rock that'll be out of the way. Again, this is a Sumpless system, so this will be perfect to give us a place for highlight corals and a secure place to put that rock. And then we have the other space on the side for an adjustable section of egg crate. So I've cut another piece of egg crate. This one will basically fit in the aquarium next to that rock box that we've built, all the way to the other side. Fills up the rest of that area. This one's going to be probably a couple inches off the bottom. I want to leave enough room to insert my heater. I'm going to put that on the bottom there so it's out of the way. Again, with the rock out of the way, the heater out of the way, we're going to have a pretty wide open space in here for our frags. So again, I'll probably go just a couple inches off the bottom just to get a place for that equipment. Okay, so I built these legs. That is a couple inches off the bottom. So now we have a great place to keep our rock, our biological filtration, out of the way without a sump. We have a place to stick our heater, which is under here. Again, something normally that would be in the sump. That will be out of the way. And we have plenty of room for frags. These I did leave the supports in a little bit, just so our inverts and other critters can get in there and clean the front glass. Around the rock, I wanted to leave as much room as possible, so we went right tight to the glass. Next step is painting. So first thing I'm going to do is use some alcohol and a rag and just wipe down the outside of the back of the aquarium. I'm going to give that a really good cleaning. Make sure it's dry and make sure that there's no fingerprints or other imperfections on the glass before we go ahead and paint it. I'm just going to do the back. I'm not going to do the bottom or sides of this aquarium. So let's get that wiped down and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, for the next step I added some painter's tape. I ran some tape right along the edge of the corners glass, really from the top to the side, or the back to the side, I guess, as well as covered over those plastic pieces on the top and the bottom. And one thing I like to do is I like to just keep the bottom part of the tape folded out on both sides, and you can see the top, same thing, it goes out extended beyond the plastic. This way, if any drips or anything happen as you roll, it won't roll down onto the side of the aquarium. If it does, it's not a big deal. It can be just scraped off with a razor blade. So now that we have everything taped off, let's get working on painting it. So I'm just going to stir up this paint. It's a nice black paint. I am a big fan of black backgrounds. Some people like the blue. I just feel that the black is, I don't know if it's less of a distraction or it just kind of disappears in the background and just helps you focus on the colors and everything in the tank. Not really sure. I had blue in the past, and I've just really grown to be a big fan of the black backgrounds. So just clean off this paint stick here. It's hard to do this with one hand. Pour a little bit on our plate. That should be more than enough. And now I'm just going to take our roller and just get this thing wet with paint. Again, a little tricky with one hand. So let me put the camera down for a second. We'll get this rolled up with some fresh paint and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, now my roller is fully saturated with paint. We can start rolling our first coat onto our aquarium here. Again, not left-handed. A little bit tough trying to hold the phone. I need a tripod. But really what we're trying to do here is just make a thin coat. So obviously glass is fairly smooth and not porous. So paint initially won't really want to stick to it as well as it will after you have this first coat down. And you'll really notice the difference. If you've never painted an aquarium or painted glass, you'll really notice that the first coat doesn't roll smoothly. It's again, I'm going to kind of work it in a little bit just to feather it in. But it doesn't cover well, obviously. You can see the light shining through there. But this first coat just creates a really good bond. So when you put on your second coat and maybe your third coat, you'll notice that it rolls on, just like if you were painting a wall. It really just sticks very well once that first coat is on there. So I'm just going to clean up this edge a little bit. And let's just roll this on. This roller is being a little bit, it's weird. The actual roller itself keeps sliding off, so I'm just going to have to work with what I have here, but let me just cover that up. So we're just going to get that thin coat on there. We'll let this dry, and we'll add a second coat. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes. I did bring the aquarium inside where it was a little bit warmer just to help that first coat of paint dry a little bit faster. Um, so just it's still a little tacky, but that's great. That's going to be perfect for our next coat. I wanted to show you the paint that I was using. This is a Rust-Oleum paint. Obviously, it's in a can. It's an oil-based paint. Same stuff that you would get in a spray can, just obviously in a liquid form that you can roll on. I prefer to roll on the paint over spray. Just helps with overspraying and everything else. It's nice to just be able to roll it on and have it controlled right where you want it and not waste any. So let's get that second coat on there and we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, we've just rolled our second coat and you can see the difference, how much darker this is. Really, really good coverage on the second coat. There is a little light shining through, I can see in this corner area here. So we'll need a third coat, but again, really starting to show great coverage. That third coat will make it nice and dark and you won't see anything going through. Okay, so we just added our third coat. Came out really, really nice. Nice dark coverage, nice thick coverage. Don't have any light shining through, and that's really what you want. You want to have that nice, solid black coverage with no light coming through, and very happy with how that looks. Nice and dark, and if you look closely, you'll see some little specks here and there. That is just dust, really, from the Marco rock and some reflections. We haven't cleaned anything but the back of the glass to do the painting, but it really came out great. So let's move on to our next step. Now I'm just going to peel off this painter's tape. I like to do this while the paint is still very wet. What you don't want to do is have that paint dry and kind of form a, stick to the tape and peel off as you peel that tape off. So while the paint is wet, I like to peel off that tape, and that just helps make sure nothing peels off on you when you really don't want it to after you've done such a great job getting everything painted up nice. Okay, now that the paint is dry, I've installed our racks and our rock just to kind of give you an idea of where we are so far. Things are looking great. So we have a nice chamber here to keep our Marco rock, which will eventually become live. That'll be our biological filtration. We have the elevated platform on the other side where you'll see we'll have our heater under there. And what this does is it's basically giving us the full surface area of the 10-gallon aquarium for frags. We're not wasting any of the space, but we're adding and having all the necessary life support structures that the corals are going to need to be healthy. So really happy with how it's coming so far, and let's start getting some of the life support components into the tank. Okay, we have our tank all cleaned up. I've rinsed the Marco rock and RODI water. I've rinsed the inside of the tank. I've cleaned all of the components, and I've set it up here on its shelf next to a nice water chamber for our auto top-off. Normally I wouldn't use something quite so nice for this little setup, but I had it available. It was in my sump of my display tank, and I no longer use it now that it's plumbed into the basement. So we're going to use this for our frag tank. So let's get some of that life support components installed. So this is what we're going to be using in this tank, the hang on the back filter. It's a Fluval AquaClear 50. Had this on a tank, kind of a quarantine tank, I guess, that I'm not using anymore. So we're going to be using that. In the basket, I will use a bag of carbon once things are set up, as well as the foam block for some mechanical filtration. That foam block is currently sitting in the sump of my display tank, absorbing some of that beneficial bacteria. So nothing very fancy there, but just a good hang on the back filter, to be honest with you. I'm a big fan of these. The heater is 150 watts. Again, something I had around. It's overkill for a 10-gallon aquarium. Now this is in a basement area, so it does get cool in the winter, so the heater will have no problem keeping the water warm. The only danger here is if there were ever a malfunction, 150 watts in a 10-gallon aquarium can cook things pretty quickly, so definitely going to have to keep an eye on it. But for now, this heater will work very well, I think, for our frag tank. And then for water movement, I'm going to use one of these. This is one of those Amazon jobs. You know, pretty good actually for water movement. You know, it's a magnetic mount. Um, it has an adjustable head, you know, and they have pretty good flow, which is nice. The controller itself is actually not bad either. It's adjustable, so you can adjust it for faster or slower water movement. And it also allows for waves if you want to use it for a wave maker or just use it as direct current. So let's get these items installed into our tank. Okay, so we got everything installed. Heater fits nicely under our lower frag rack. Nice and out of the way, keep things nice and warm. We have our AquaClear 50 installed. Once we get the water in there and everything heated up, we'll put the foam block in there. And we have our powerhead. So everything's coming together now. So for lighting, I'm going to use these two lights here. I have, this is a Coral Life light. It lights up either white or it lights up blue. No timer or anything like that. Press it once for white, again for blue, again for off. It does hold where you were the last state it was on. So you can hook this up to a timer. So if you have it on blue, you can set it to a timer to run blue. And that's probably what I'll do. I also have this light. This is a Coral Life light. This one's a little bit different. This one has a remote to control the different colors and different things. So let me grab that remote and I'll show you what that one looks like. So here's the light with the remote. Kind of a interesting contraption. You can press these buttons to get different colors. There's blue, green, white, red, orange, purple, I guess pink, and yellow. And then there's all these other buttons where if you want, you can have your whites on or off, your blues on or off, and your RGB on or off. So you can make different settings. It has timers, it has adjustments, and it has everything kind of built into this remote. But again, I guess I'm just going to set it to where I want to, and then from there, I'll probably just set this up with a regular timer because again, it will hold the state that it was in when the power was turned on and off. And I would just prefer to trust a electronic timer as compared to the battery operated remote. So I'm going to hook it up probably the same timer as this Coral Life and run both of them at the same time on the same light cycle so I can get good coverage because these lights sit very low to the water. They don't have a very good spread. Okay, so I've installed the lights. You can see the Coral Life with the remote is there on the left, and you can see how bright that light is. The camera on the phone, I'm using my iPhone here, but it's really washing out how bright the colors are. But you can see just even in the video how much brighter that higher rack is with that light. And I think this will give you a good mix of strong light corals on the left and that higher rack, and some lower light corals on the right on that larger rack. Alright, so we have some water. I filled up the aquarium with fresh salt water, and I filled up my RODI top-off container with fresh RODI water. I got our racks in, and you can see that they're floating up just a little bit. That sometimes happens when you first do this to get some micro bubbles that just kind of seem to elevate them a little bit. They'll settle in over time, and really once you put your first coral on there, that'll be more than enough weight to hold them down. So we got good surface agitation. Temperature 63, so we got to warm it up a little bit. So we're going to let this run for about a day or so, just to get everything kind of broken in and settled and the temperature up, and then we'll get working on getting this thing cycled. Forgot to mention that I am going to install an ATO on this unit as well. I'm going to use this ice cap ATO. I had this again from another build. It has this tiny little pump. I love it. Great when you have your reservoir right next to either your sump or your aquarium. Really nice, simple unit. Comes with this mount. You just mount it on the side of your tank, and the water line will fit in that to keep it from falling out or falling in. It has the both optical sensors, magnetic mount on those. And so basically, this one pointing down is your water fill, and that is your overflow. So if the auto top off were to stay on, it would alert you. And this thing will make a ton of noise. It really does. I mean, it doesn't have any kind of Wi-Fi connectivity, but if something goes wrong, it beeps like crazy, and you'll know about it if you're in the area. Really nice little compact unit, and I really do like it. So we're going to get this installed. Okay, so I have the auto top off installed. You see the optical sensor is at the water level, so that's the level it'll stay. The other emergency one is tipped up out of the water, so if that happens to get wet, it'll turn off the pump for the auto top off. I have the hose installed. I have that above the water line just to prevent any kind of siphoning back into the reservoir. There is a siphon break on this, but I still like to keep those like that, as well as keeping the water level of my reservoir below the surface, the level of the aquarium. And this will just prevent any kind of siphoning back and forth one way or the other. Even with the siphon break there, I just like to be extra cautious. Now that the tank is up to temperature and everything is warm, I'm going to insert this block. This has been sitting in my sump for the last couple days. That's for the AquaClear 50. We're going to put that in now that the tank has been settled and then the temperature is up to the same temperature as my display tank. I also grabbed a couple pieces of these rubble from my sump. And again, just looking to seed some of that beneficial bacteria and give this tank a really good head start. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually mount a camera on here. I had a camera, and I do like to have these on my tank. This is a Wise camera. It's in a window mount, and these are really nice to just keep an eye on things. I don't have any kind of controller on here, so at least I'll have a visual as to what's going on in the tank. Again, you can find these on the website. This is a Wise Cam window mount. Really nice, just double-sided tape sticks to this rubber mount. You stick it on the side of your aquarium, and you just set the camera right into that rubber mount, and it gives you a nice view without all the glare that you had if you had it outside of the tank. So let me show you what that looks like. So here's what it looks like with the lights on, and that's what it looks like with the lights off. These cameras are actually really good and sensitive to not much light. So you can see that even without light, there's still a pretty good view just with the room ambient light. Next, I'm going to install this ammonia alert. I really like these things. Again, just gonna stick it on the front of your aquarium. I have these on my display tanks as well, down in the sump. Just quick indicator if there's any ammonia in the tank. They last for about a year. Really inexpensive. I actually had a handful of these for my other display tank, so I'm going to take one of them and stick them on our Frag tank here. Just nice when you go look at the tank to give it a quick peek and make sure there's no ammonia in there. Okay, so the ammonia alert is up in the corner there. I also found a little mag float that I had around, so I stuck that on the other one just to keep that front glass nice and clean. So I think at this point we are ready to rock and roll. We have the tank set up, back panel painted, our racks are built. We have our dead dry Marco rock in there. We have some rubble from the sump of my display tank to help seed things along. We have water movement with our power head. We have our AquaClear with the foam insert that sat in the sump to try and also absorb some of that beneficial bacteria that can be used to kind of move things along. We have our auto top off. We have a couple lights. So we're really in pretty good shape here. So we're going to just let this just run for a little bit longer, and then we're going to seed it with a little ammonia and use some Dr. Tim's One and Only to do a fishless cycle. We'll do some testing over the next couple days, make sure that cycle is completed, and then we'll start introducing a little bit of livestock and see how things go. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Our next episode, we're going to work on our fishless cycle. We're going to be using Dr. Tim's ammonia and Dr. Tim's One and Only. We're going to document the process day by day as we go through that fishless cycle and get this tank ready for livestock. I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching.